Hello, today's case brief will be on Tinker versus Des Moines, and the plaintiff being Tinker, Des Moines Independent Community School District being the defendant. I am Alondra Vega. A little about the case. This all began due to the war in Vietnam occurring. There was a group of students at a public high school in Des Moines that felt very strongly against the war and wanted to protest it. They wanted to do this by wearing black armbands at school during the holiday season to show their support for the end of the war. And this did not go well with the school. The school did not support this protest and warned that any participating students would be warned, and if they did not comply, then they would be suspended. Mary Beth Tinker, Christopher Eckdard, and John Tinker were all suspended for going against the school policy. This then led to Tinker petitioning on violation for the students' right of expressions, and this was first taken to the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Iowa. And at this time that they went, they did not win their trial. Afterwards, they took it to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit, and they also did not win the case. After this, they decided to go ahead and proceed to the Supreme Court. Some of the issues that were trying to be resolved in the case were that did Tinker have the right to protest the Vietnam War in school? Does the First Amendment apply to public schools? And is the prohibition of symbolic protest by students a violation of their freedom of speech? The holdings: Tinker didn't have the right to protest. The First Amendment does apply to public schools, and the prohibition of symbolic protest by students is a violation of their freedom of speech. The reasoning behind their winning in the Supreme Court, beginning with the fact that the protest for the war, for the Vietnam War, with the use of armbands, was protected by the First Amendment because the armbands were found to be pure speech, thus protected by the First Amendment and proving the school violated constitutional rights. Secondly, Justice Fortas wrote, "It can hardly be argued that either students or teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate." The reason I made note to include this quote was because this resonated with many people during this case, and this court ruling illustrated that the motives behind the protests were peaceful and orderly, and that the school did not have the right to infringe on these students' rights based on its own fears of disorder. Lastly, the school could not prove that the armbands could cause a disruption to the learning environment. There was no proof of significant disruption to the schoolwork or discipline within the school. The court found that the reasoning behind the school's decision was out of fear of confrontation that is usually evoked with an unpopular or unpleasant opinion. Given the fact that there were other political symbols, such as campaign buttons, that were previously allowed, made it known to the court that it was selective on what it wanted to choose to be against in regards to political symbols. Thus, the school was not neutral for all symbols. The rule of law is that this case established that officials at public schools are unable to prohibit student expression until they can expect with reason that it will cause disruption to school activities or take over the rights of others. Basically, this cemented students' rights to free speech in public schools.